how I was introduced to Jewish culture was through literature. When I was 14, I thought I was the reincarnated soul of Oscar Wilde. I just loved great writers. And I thought that because, he was from Dublin and he had a father who was a doctor like I did and a mother who was this larger than life personality, which reminded me of my mother in a little bit. So I just really would identify with artists and learn everything I could about them. And, my father, even when we were in America, gave me a great Irish literature education. Both Irish, I was introduced to Irish language authors like Nuala Ní Dhomhnaill, and also Irish authors who wrote in English, like Yeats. He would give me, when I was 10, he gave me, poetry books and things like that. So very literary environment. So we took an American literature class, when I was a junior in high school, and we would study, there was Philip Roth, there was Saul Bellow, there was Bernard Malamud, and I did a paper on Isaac Bashevis Singer, which we studied in an American lit class because he won the Nobel Prize as an American. And so I really enjoyed these Jewish writers, and I recognized certain things of feeling like an outsider in America, of the centrality of religion, of the famous self-deprecating humor, the fierce intellect, the incredible respect for literature. And once I discovered Singer, I was like, oh, he's a Yiddish speaker. And then I realized that, Malamud and Roth and Bellow, they were all Yiddish speakers or the children of Yiddish speakers. So I was like, oh, okay, so how it works in America is the under language is Yiddish. The way in Anglo-Irish literature, the under language is Irish Gaelic. And I didn't really think too much about this. I'm like, that's what American culture is. And so then I I wanted to go, like I had gone back from, poets like Yeats to Irish language poets. I wanted to go to the source, to the more, what I felt might be more culturally rich linguistically, although I might not have thought of it that clearly at the time. So I went to the Boston Public Library, and they had about this, 3 shelves, about that wide, of Yiddish literature and translation. And so I began reading all of them. And I came across this writer called Chaim Grada, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I like him even more than Singer. He's just incredible. This is so moving. The Yeshiva was one of the books that I read, and Rabbis and Wives was another. And so I went back to this great teacher that I had, my English teacher and my theater teacher, and I said to her, I just discovered Chaim Grada, and he's just, he's amazing. Well, what do you think of him? She's like, what? I'm like, the Yiddish writer Chaim Grada, he's fantastic. Don't you love his books? And she looked at me and she said, I don't know that writer. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. This is a beautifully educated, fantastic Irish, brilliant teacher, and she doesn't know Chaim Grada. And so then it dawned on me that there was a lot here to dive into and to discover and to share with other people. And I began sharing, I read a book of his memoirs called My Mother's Sabbath Days. And I was so moved by his description of Jewish Vilna and of his mother and of his wife. And in a way, it reminded me of Ireland. It's not this way anymore. But even when I was a kid, my father grew up in Ireland in the 50s, my parents did, but that was like America in the 20s. You know what I mean? It was an old world type of place, and it was a very arable, lots of farmland, and it just wasn't a slower pace, a real focus on community and the church at the center of it. It was just different from, generations different from America at the time that I grew up. So I recognized something that felt very comfortable to me in the stories of Vilna. And just a feeling and of community and culture and of struggling to survive that just felt just comfortable. And so when I read his memoirs, I said, oh gosh, I have to go there. I have to see this. And then of course my second thought was, oh, I can't. It's completely destroyed. And so in my high school, we were studying French and Spanish, and I knew a little bit of Irish, and so I went to Boston University, and I was in this perfect program called the University Professors Program, where you could make your own major. And my family didn't want me to major in theater, which was my great passion. So I said, okay, I'll major in literature, and I began taking different languages, and I was like, I want to read this in the original. I had that experience maybe with, who did we read? Camus in French or something. I was like, oh, translation, that's wild, it's so different. I have to read everything in the original if I'm gonna really understand something. So I said, I'm gonna study Yiddish. And there were no Yiddish classes. I couldn't study Yiddish, but I said, oh, there's a Hebrew class. So I took Hebrew. And I didn't really know the difference too much at the time. And then the University Professors Program was in the School of Theology, and I was walking down the hallway there, and I was like, this Hebrew's great, and I really love it, but I know it's a good step with the same alphabet, but I really want to learn Yiddish, and I don't know where to learn Yiddish, and how am I going to learn Yiddish? I love learning languages. I would take like French at 9 and Spanish at 10 and Hebrew at 11, and I would answer in the wrong language in every class, and it just would explode my brain. It was just a great feeling. And then I see this poster in the hallway. This is a theme that would happen throughout my life, being like, I have to do this, and I don't know how to do this. And it said, get paid to learn Yiddish. In the School of Theology. It was the probably only poster in the whole huge university campus. And I was like, whoa. I was late. I was like, get paid to learn Yiddish. So I got the information, and of course it was to be an intern at the Yiddish Book Center.